were hired probably over a lot of other candidates who may have been just as qualified, maybe even more qualified, but somehow there were some qualities in you that set you apart and that we selected you. And I think that, especially in this job climate right now, as you would know, Michael, it's incredibly competitive.
Hello and welcome to the Pharmaverse Podcast. This episode is brought to you by Inside MSL. I'm your host, Michael Pietrack. And whether you're an MSL or aspiring to be one, you're in the right place because our content is built to help you upskill your MSL practice, sharpen your understanding of industry, and either break in or move up in your career. You just heard a clip from Lee Ann McDowell, PharmD. She's a medical affairs professional with 15 years of experience in industry on top of 15 years of clinical practice. Lee Ann spent 11 years as an MSL and now 6 years leading MSLs. Today, she's going to share with us 6 ways new hires can impress their managers. You're going to leave this episode with practical steps to make a great first impression in your first 90 days and beyond. So, Lee Ann McDowell, welcome to the Pharmaverse.
Michael, thank you. I'm really excited to be here with you today. Thanks for asking me to join. I'm really looking forward to speaking with you.
Well, you're one of my all-time favorites. So yeah, I had to have you on the podcast. But I want to talk to you about something very, very specific because anyone who's ever hired someone else knows that feeling when you start to realize that maybe the person's a mishire. And typically that happens pretty early. And nobody watching wants to be a mishire. So Lee Ann, tell us a way that a new hire can impress their manager in the first 90 days.
I think there are several pieces to this, and I'll start with the first one, and that is to be prepared. This means be prepared. You're new, you want to be prepared for meetings with your mentor, your trainer, your manager. Everyone at the company within your team, they're going to be supporting your successful onboarding. Your job is to learn. You need to learn your data and your science if you don't know it already. And you also need to learn your competitors' data and and the science along with it. It's usually the same science, but you need to know their data. Then where do those differences lie between your data and their data? Maybe you don't have any competitors yet. That makes your job a little bit easier if you're a first in class. But you really have to know the data and the science, and really repetitiveness for you in the beginning is good. This is why you're usually set up with a mentor. You're asked, if you're doing a training module or modules online, a lot of the things you find will build upon the previous module. Repetitiveness is important. You want to take the time to really learn. Be curious. Be prepared, with questions. One of the things that I've done and I always do is I have whiteboards on my walls, and you can do this with flip chart paper. Tape them to your walls. Take different colored markers. Write down things that you are having difficulty either remembering or verbalizing. We all have those things. It's not uncommon. And put them up there. You're going to see them every day now, and you can change them out when you finally feel like you get it. You want to write pertinent information, maybe a pathway that you're having difficulty grasping, or some of the enzymes within that pathway, whatever it might be, but you're going to see it. You're going to learn it. You're going to see it every day. It might be trial statistics for your data, your competitors' data, anything that you think, you need to make sure that you are solid on. Put it up on your wall in front of you. Use color coded things. I think, just try to stay on track. You have a calendar of what you need to complete. No excuses. Sit down, get it done, and use any tools that work for you. But that just happens to be one that works for me.
Yeah, you're such a stylish person. You're like one of the most stylish people I know. I could not imagine a ripped piece of paper going on like tape onto your wall. Like, are you kidding me? I figured your OCD would go.
It's not this wall, but it's the wall.
But I could see a whiteboard with like beautiful handwriting and different colors meaning different things. I could picture that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Do you have any horror stories of a person being majorly unprepared so that we can really understand what you mean by be prepared?
I think that you're gonna be on a schedule, right? You're gonna be meeting with your trainers. You're gonna be doing probably modules online. You're gonna have publications that you need to read. What I really find difficult is that when we lay out a training program for onboarding somebody, we know how long it takes somebody with the background that an MSL has to go through the training. And we've tested this. We know that you should be able to, at this point in time, you should know how to answer these questions. You should feel confident in understanding this background or this mechanism, or what plays into this disease. I really find it challenging when we're working with someone and they tell me they didn't have enough time, or there's a lot of excuses for one reason or another that come up. um you know you were hired probably over a lot of other candidates who may have been just as qualified, maybe even more qualified, but somehow there were some qualities in you that set you apart and that we selected you. And I think that, especially in this job climate right now, as you would know, Michael, it's incredibly competitive. Show me what you have. Show me that you have some grit, that you can buckle down, that you have the wherewithal, and you can do this. Because I can't, and I don't want to, and for lack of a better word, I don't want to babysit a professional. I want you to, sit down. What I always do on my whiteboards, and I didn't mention this earlier, I have a side off to the right. I put my questions, things that I don't understand. What don't I know? What do I need to ask someone else? One of the trainers, or I need to go look that up. Okay. I think it's just being tenacious. When I don't see that, when I see sort of this waiting for somebody to help you kind of thing the whole way through, or you're not keeping up to our timeline, I start to wonder, is there something else going on? And I start to ask, how can we help you? How can we support you? If there's a different way that you learn, right? I want to understand that. How can we help you be successful? I think we want you to be successful. We hired you.
Well, what's another way? I mean, so be prepared. Okay. Got to be prepared. Those are great examples. What's another way that an MSL can really impress you in a first impression, first 90 days?
So this is a big one. All of these that I'm going to mention are actually very big for me, but being proactive. So it's not enough just to learn what's been given to you or outlined for you in your training manual. Okay. I think it's again, it goes back to being curious, right? Look things up. A medical term, you may not, you might be familiar with the medical term, but do you really know that medical term? And what's behind it? But you really need to be proactive, because chances are that's going to come up somewhere when you're speaking to, excuse me, a physician or an investigator at a site, or maybe one of the nurses in the clinic, or a study coordinator. That, I assure you, will be the one thing that comes up that you didn't really look into or look behind into. The other thing is know how to walk through your tables and graphs. I've seen, even during an interview, where people will hand them a slide deck of our information. They gloss over a graph or some statistical analysis. They gloss it over. And then I dig into that during questions. Can you explain to me what this Kaplan-Meier curve means on, what does it demonstrate about the primary endpoint? I need you to show me that you really understand this depiction of the data. What's the difference between that and how we show it on a forest plot? Like, if you really, it's not just, I think for the MSL role too, it's not just what's being shown and what you're being taught. It's what's behind all of that. Go back to some references, look at those things. You will learn so much. You'll be prepared. So I think being proactive and not just waiting is important.
Yeah. So as you're talking, yeah, I think we hit on the same thing. Because as I'm thinking about what you're saying, being prepared means read what's on the page, but be proactive is like read what's between the lines. Be curious. ask questions, find out those answers proactively. Um, that's great. So I know you have 5 of these, so I want to keep going, but what is the third best practice to impress your manager?
And it's funny, aren't these all interrelated? If you really drill it down to the core, they're all really very much interrelated. And that is you want to go beyond what is given. And I know I already mentioned that, but it's not just, this, okay, here's my manual. I'm going to learn what's in here and then that's it. Because I can tell if that's all you're going to do, right? People that you meet with in the field, they're going to know if you really and truly, are committed to this therapeutic area and disease state and you really and truly understand it. So, you know, I one of my pet peeves is slide presentations. I cannot tell you the number of times I've had to ask somebody to just start entirely over if they're making a slide presentation on their own or we've given them a slide deck. I've seen a lot of MSLs just come to the competency presentation and after months of training and they're not really confident about what we just discussed about what's really behind or in between the lines. And you're not just going to read this information to your audience, right? The audience can read, whether it's your team or a KOL, they can read what's on the slide. So that's a big no. Don't read everything to me. Number one, you have to orient your audience to that particular slide. This slide is depicting, the shows efficacy results at week 24 across 3 different parameters. Because a doctor they're going to need a moment, right? They're going to need a moment to orient. So I hired a gentleman one time. He really wanted to get into the pharma industry. He was working in specialty pharmacy and he was a PharmD and he's really smart. And he just happened to look me up on LinkedIn. I really enjoy mentoring people and helping people when they're interested in trying to make a change in their career. And so we actually became friends. He was going to interview with the company that I was working at. We happened to have an opening. And he had to pull together a slide deck on any disease state, really. I didn't give him a deck. And the first deck he put together and presented to me, I said, that was not good. And I'll tell you why. Let me give you my feedback. It wasn't pulled together very, very well. It wasn't organized very well. He wasn't enthusiastic. It wasn't interesting. It flopped, right? So I put up a slide deck of ours and I started to present it to him. And I said, do you see how I'm doing this? I'm going to show you by example. He started over again. We walked through it. I helped him, prepare, and he walked through it. And the next day, or when it was time for him to present to the panel, it was superb. He had what he did. He studied. He studied. He he knew everything that he could possibly know about what was in that deck, his deck that he put together. His pace was good. Um, his whole, persona was very confident. I was thrilled, and I'll tell you what, he was the best to this day. I will tell you, I think of him so fondly. He was the best MSL hire I think I ever had. I was very proud of that.
All right. So your first 90 days with a new manager, you're a new MSL, or you're even an experienced MSL. You want to be prepared. You want to be proactive. You want to go above what's given. Give us another one. What's another way that we can impress our manager?
I'll go back to that gentleman that I hired. He asked a lot of questions. He was like, "How do I do this better? How can I present this? How would you present this? What Lee Ann, as my manager, what do you want? What can I show you that would show that I'm, really excited to be here, wholly committed, and I want to do the best job that I can possibly do." And I said, "Look, you know, you've grasped the art of presenting, I think, very nicely. Set goals, right? Like this shows that you're not waiting around for others to completely direct you, right? You're thinking ahead and beyond what is expected. So, for instance, once I'm in the field, I'd like to connect one of my big key opinion leaders to perhaps 5 community physicians once per quarter for an ask me anything kind of get together for lunch. But ask, like, where can I help? Where are there areas that nobody's kind of taking care of at this point from a team perspective? And I think that shows me your interest.
I'm hearing two different points. I'm hearing set goals, but then there's like this let your skills shine kind of a thing and be helpful. Would you say those are separated?
Well, I think they are. I think that's actually another point is let your skills shine. What are you good at, right? What are you good at that you can lend those skills to the team and to your day-to-day work? Are you super organized? Great. I need people who are super organized. The MSL role requires people to be very organized. You have to set up your own travel. You have to, be places at a certain time. The whole Congress setting requires super organizational skills. So if you're really good at organization, maybe you are somebody that we could have put our Excel spreadsheet together for sessions at the Congress that, need to be assigned to the MSLs that are attending. Uh, Maybe you want to dig into the booth um, schedule, who's working, but that requires looking at who has to attend certain sessions at certain times, who has a KOL lunch or coffee or something at a certain time. Can you pull together all these moving pieces and parts? Do you like that? Do you want to try to do that? Are you great at these spreadsheets? Do you have AI in your pocket? Like, this is something that you're like, oh yeah, I can do this or I can do that, or let's see what, I can pull together for something that we're working on. I also think that when we say shine, I think that you need to speak in team meetings. We know you're new, but we want to hear from you, right? Whether it's a comment, an idea, a question. I just want to know that you're there, you're engaged, and you're not just silently listening because you're either too shy or timid or you're afraid that your question might be a dumb question. And we all know your team is your safe space, right? But when you're new, the best thing to do is to just try to interject here or there. It shows me that you're with us. You're on board. If you have a certain skill set that maybe didn't come through in the interview process, it's great to bring those out because chances are it's something that we need. And I love that. I love just people that, jump in.
So I'm hearing six nuggets of information here to impress your manager in the first 90 days. Be prepared, be proactive, go above what's given, set goals, let your skills shine, and jump in. I mean, if somebody's doing that, they're impressing their manager.
I think so. Absolutely. Especially early on.
Well, Lee Ann, these have been very valuable insights for both current and aspiring MSLs. And I just want to be the first to thank you. Thanks for being a guest on the Pharmaverse.
Thanks, Michael. It was an honor. And thank you for asking me to participate. It's always a pleasure to work with you.
Well, that ends another episode of the Pharmaverse Podcast. We have many great leaders lined up for you. So make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a single career-enhancing insight. And I love to read your comments, so please leave one. But for now, that's a wrap. See you next time on the Pharmaverse.